So, Andrea Stewart-Cousins, are you on?
Yes, I am, Eileen.
Oh, great. Thank you so much for coming on very short notice and being here with us. And, we have, you want to talk about bail reform and the messaging around this and how we can help make this the issue it is and not what it isn't, to push this forward in this next election cycle, because it's really important.
They're going to push it forward. Well, thank you, Eileen. It has been, again, an incredible honor for me to know you. Even before NYCD 16, we've always been able to have frank and earnest and honest conversations. And this was also, as you said, spontaneous because we were going back and forth. And the question that you had sent to me was, I won't say exactly what you said, but you were questioning the mayor and whether or not he was running for Congress. The reality is he's already started making fundraising calls for Congress. So yeah, he's running for Congress. So you know that. Mm-hmm. The other thing that is important, that NYCD 16 has been pivotal and so incredibly effective in making sure that people get out to vote, that they have their focus on the issues that are important, and that the right people get elected. And so it is very, very alarming when we find ourselves in a situation where we are echoing the talking points of Republicans and finding ourselves at a loss of a rebuttal to what they are saying. So it is very, very clear to me, and I want people to listen to this because it is true. It is very clear to me that this is a Republican national coordinated campaign of fear. A Republican national coordinated campaign of fear. What happened after the George Floyd death, where people around the world understood manifestly the importance of reform of policing and the criminal justice system? The reason why it resonated so strongly is because people understood that we can have justice and we could have the ability to maintain peace in our community without having brutality, disproportionate impacts, etc. That was always understood. Bail reform was done before the George Floyd murder, and police reform happened after. They were very pissed off that it happened at all. And of course, we are now having a backlash that is a Republican national coordinated campaign of fear. They are linking crime to the bail reform. Very simple. Police reform, bail reform, crime. Crime is going up in some places, according to our county executive, though not in Westchester, not in a lot of places. Gun violence is clearly an issue. And it's clearly an issue that is a national issue, not at all related to our bail reforms. But what you have is the Republican National Coordinated Campaign of Fear, which says, don't look at COVID, don't look at the pandemic, don't look at what's happened around people's mental health instead. Don't look at the proliferation of guns. Don't look at what is really causing the spike in crime. Let's look at Democrats who are progressive and wanting to change the way the criminal justice system works. And in so doing, you can suppress the vote, you can take the focus off of guns where they belong, you can stoke fear, and you can create a Republican backlash that will make sure that none of these good things you want to happen, climate change, economic recovery, anything you want, the Democrats are leading, will not happen because you are able to somehow link the fear with Democrats being in charge. So that is our reality. I have a few slides just so you will also be able, I don't know if you want to run those now.
Did we get slides out? You know, I didn't get any slides.
You didn't?
So
Well,
sorry.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So therefore, so what the slides were going to tell you is the facts about bail reform. So I'll go through them rather quickly. The fact is that our reform on bail was about two things: misdemeanors and nonviolent felonies. It has nothing to do with if you're shooting people and hurting people or whatever. That is still a bailable offense. What you will see everywhere is no matter what the crime is, they say bail reform, period. That's the answer, period. Again, it is a Republican national coordinated campaign of fear. So you should know that it is nonviolent felonies and it is misdemeanors. You should know that, again, Khalif Browder was the spotlighted person, but he was one of countless thousands of people who were held in jails all over New York State and the country because they could not pay bail. Khalif Browder's crime was that he was accused of stealing a backpack, did not have the money to get out. 3 years in Rikers Island, mostly in solitary confinement, ultimately killed himself. We will not criminalize poverty for nonviolent misdemeanor offenses. Bail, however, still exists for every other kind of crime, including some gun possession crimes without firing the gun. When you look at a Kyle Rittenhouse, traveled across state lines, shot 3 people, killed 2 of them, he was out on bail. Nobody talked about why he was out on bail. He was also not, incidentally, deemed dangerous. Khalif Browder held for 3 years for being accused of stealing a backpack. Let us be clear. This is what we responded to. Police are not happy, and certainly some of the right-leaning police folks and others, are not happy that we've been able to start having another conversation. But if you want conversations on a lot of these other things, elder parole, so on and so forth, if we can't beat back this, which is just clearly a matter of allowing people who are accused of nonviolent and misdemeanor crimes to go on and keep their jobs, keep their homes, keep their families intact while they await their date in court, you're not going to be able to push something that allows for people who have done their time, who have already been convicted of a crime, to be able to resume their lives. Just like we're watching on a national level, women's rights being pulled back, these people are pulling back every single thing, and they will continue to if we can't stand up. And this is a classic example right now. Also, when they talk about discretion, judges have discretion. They continue to have discretion now. If it's available, they have discretion. They can decide how much money they should have to put on one person or another if it's a bailable offense. But I will tell you, and I don't have to tell this very informed crowd, that if you look at what has happened over the years, whether it's in school systems now, why they have a movement towards, not suspending students because it is Black and brown kids that are suspended disproportionately, that are in this school to prison pipeline, and on the same crimes, Black people are disproportionately overcharged and over-sentenced as it relates to white people. This is a reality. We are here, facing this. In fact, Rachel Maddow just did something that was quite interesting. Voter fraud, quote unquote. 4 white men absolutely put forward ballots that they knew were of people who were deceased in their family. Nobody got anything more than probation or a couple of days in jail. Black woman was a felon, out doing her life was told by the parole officer or whatever that she could vote. She voted because she believed she could. Now that she had paid her debt to society, that woman is going to jail for 6 years. Now, we can't want justice. We can't want equality, and we can't want, all these things without changes in a system. And I want to be clear. I will sit down with any clear-minded person who is serious about making things better. I'm all for that. I want to do that. But I will not just respond to the Republican National Coordinated Campaign of Fear, which refuses to recognize the role of a pandemic in the spike of crime, which refuses to recognize the proliferation of guns as a reason for this deadly crimes, and refuses to pass a Voting Rights Act, or refuses to allow women their rights, and is waiting to take it all back, and have Democrats and people who are progressive carry the banner because they've managed to put their insidious worm into our brains as though this indeed are connected and we are the problem. We are not the problem. That's all I have to say.
Whoa. Wow. Let's unmute everybody and give you a hand, because that is amazing.
That was amazing.
Well said, well said.
Shouting that on the news every night. Really, that was incredible, Andrea. I really apologize that we don't have your slides, but I would like to put.
That's okay. I think that was,
I just got them and just forwarded them.
You just got them.
Yeah.
That was better
Well,
than
I
slides.
may have gotten them from an unfamiliar name.
I will put a link to them in the newsletter so people can look up the information that you wanted to share with us.
That's right. But you know what? The understanding of this being a Republican National Coordinated Campaign of Fear came to me this morning, and it is not on the slides, but that is what we are dealing with. So I will send you new talking points that includes that, because that's what we have to push back. They are suppressing our votes. They are corrupting our understanding of what we know is important, and we're helping them do it. It has to stop.
I know it's there. That's Emerson and Thoreau, right?
Let's mute everybody again, please, and except for me. My question is, okay, so we put out this statement about Mike Spano, just whether or not they're calling bail reform, associating that with all these things. When we hear that, what do we say that is, it takes a while to kind of describe what this is and what it isn't, but I feel like we need to have a really strong, succinct message to put out there. Yeah.
I think we start with, do not be fooled by this Republican National Coordinated Campaign of Fear. Mm-hmm. Crime is up nationally, and it's not because of our bail reform, period. It's because they refuse to recognize the pandemic. It's because they refuse to recognize the proliferation of guns. It's because they refuse to make changes in a criminal justice and police reforms that we need. That's what it is. And the facts about the bail is this: it is only applicable to non-violent felonies and misdemeanors, period. That's it.
That's, I think, what needs to get repeated again and again and again. And then can you address
back?
Yes.
Like just like you did in the letter, when you see, because you hear these people, like they'll say, you'll watch it, somebody was shot, the tragic death of these two officers, terrible, and then here's a guy who's got a gun, he's got a gun from some other place, an illegal gun, somehow you'll hear bail reform. It's crazy. So we need to just start pushing back, send your email saying, what are you talking about? It's not true.
Yeah. Can you also address the idea of the danger standard and judges, and why that doesn't make sense?
Well, because, again, I'm sorry.
what that
because-
means and what
Yeah, well,
why
before,
you don't think it makes
you know,
right.
before we did any of this bail reform, which again, everybody was supportive of because we understood the tragedy of being, accused of a crime and held because you couldn't afford money. So now when you look at a dangerousness standard, because we talked about that, and when you looked at a dangerousness standard, when you see again that disproportionately, Black and brown people are given the higher sentences, fewer pretrial releases, all of these things. We already have that historic data. And as I said, I'm just looking at Kyle Rittenhouse. I mean, this is contemporary.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a man who shot 3 people, 2 died, and he's out on bail. They don't think he was dangerous. Ahmaud Arbery was jogging through a neighborhood. A former, whoever he was, sheriff or whatever, shot him because they decided he was dangerous. So I'm concerned about people, especially since we haven't addressed the system. We already know these sentences are disparate and they're happening now. So unless you're willing to address, and that's what I say, why can't we all come together and look at what we know to be the case? And if you've got judges sitting on these courtrooms that are sentencing people in a biased way, that now. You should be willing, a community should be willing, the court system should be willing to call out those people now. I don't want to have a dangerous standard that I'm going to look at what happens in 5 years to find out who's messed up. And it's the same way in police departments. You know who the, quote unquote vigilantes are now. You're mad that we did the 50A reform, which puts police records out there. But if they would weed out their own bad apples, I wouldn't have to do it. You do it. But there's no willingness to do it. They don't want to change it from inside. And then they get mad if you change it from outside. So that's the problem with dangerousness. Dangerousness is in the eye of the beholder. We already have data. If you're willing to tell me who's already, proving the case that there's disparate sentencing, and you're willing to say censor those people and put those people out there, then let's talk about it. But don't tell me you've got to figure out data going forward to see if. Meanwhile, you're keeping people who could actually get out on bail. They're at the mercy of the judge. So who knows how many people could be held indefinitely without even an opportunity to get out because somebody thought they were dangerous and somebody didn't. So that's my concern about dangerousness.
Yeah, thank you so much. We have some questions here. One is from Vanessa Merton asking about what is the Democratic Party strategy to combat this campaign of fear nationally? Because it seems like we all need to be putting this message out. And in a really consistent, using very consistent language. Every time something comes up, we need to be able to say something, or even before something comes up, say something about this to be really consistent. And I think that, what do you have to say about that?
Well, I think Micah said it. I don't think there is any kind of a national Democratic strategy, but there's people like me who do have voices on a national stage, and I will, start trying to hammer the message. And I think collectively we will start hammering the message. There are people who have big voices, who understand the importance of, the criminal justice reforms and why we did bail and what we have to do. So like I said, it needs to be crystallized. But I said, we need to be clear. Yes. We need to be clear on a grassroots level, because you know how hard it is before it permeates to the top structure. If we are clear that this is just the Republican national coordinated campaign of fear designed to get us out of office, who would make these changes, then everything else Everything else doesn't matter. The same way they're telling us yesterday that the insurgents at the Capitol were just engaged in like, discourse. I mean, like I said, they have an amazing ability to transform things that we've actually seen and realize and know better. And somehow, at least half of the country begins to believe. Joe Biden hasn't figured out how to carry his message. It's a problem because we're all over the place. We all care about everything. We all want to correct everything. Let me tell you something. If we don't correct this, nothing else is going to happen. Nothing.
That's right.
So
That's right.
we got to correct this.
So one thing you said to me was this issue is akin to the importance of getting the IDC out.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And once people began to understand, and like I said, I thank, Dr. Mutnick and everybody who's on that concerted effort to get folks to realize that the reason why we were not in charge was because of this thing. We've been in charge. And I gave Eileen those slides for the other thing that you did. And people forget that we have carried out countless aspirational desires of people who know that we could do better, and people forget and they go on to the next thing and they go on to the next thing. And then, oh, what did you do for me lately? Oh, you didn't do anything. We got to stop. We better figure out that we are the only people who are going to destroy our ability, especially in New York, to continue to lead. And if we keep, reacting and responding to them, we're not going to be able to do any of the good things that we continue to know we have to do. So just stop, pay attention to this, push back hard, organize around pushing back hard, because right now we could get wiped out nationally and certainly in terms of the Senate right here in New York.
That's right. Thank you very much for that. And thank you for being so explicit about what the existential threat is to retaining a Democratic majority in New York. If we don't win on this issue, we're gonna lose. We'll
lose everything.
Right. So I think reconfiguring priorities, and I think many of us are going to need to do that. So please continue to put this message out and again and again and again, because people will listen and take action.
That's not my slide, but that's a good one.
Yeah, this is Liz's slide.
From
the Brennan Center, right, Liz? Justice, not fear. Hashtag justice, not fear. So we will keep moving on this.
And I'll work with you. I will continue to work with you. And again, I really thank, CD16 for everything that you've enabled us to do so far. Let us not forget how far we came. This is Black History Month. And, I appreciate being able to, along with the congressman, to be your guest, even though maybe you didn't think about it as Black History Month stuff. But, the historic reality of me being in this position, him being in this position, you, Eileen, being in any position, this is what has been gained from people fighting against folks who didn't want to see a change in the status quo. We don't get everything right, but one thing I know is that they will make wrong what is right, and we can't allow for that.
Very good.